It is Powwow.
The Powwow with Mo podcast.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Powwow with Mo podcast. I'm Mo. This is Powwow.
What's up, guys?
All right, so this is the last one we're going to be recording before we publish all of them and try to get people to listen to it.
Hopefully a fuckload of people.
That is what we're shooting for. Fuckload. I don't have the highest hopes, and I've learned editing down these podcasts is really hard. Mainly, we just don't have two very good mics, and we have no real sound mixer, and things kind of get thrown off. There's echoes. But then that just means whoever sticks around to listen really like it.
Really likes us.
Not just for that audio quality podcasts are known for it. All right. So like we're going to try to do, start with current events. It's only been a few days since we last recorded. It's not a whole lot of, actually quite a bit's happened, really.
Quite a lot of shit.
But the one thing that stuck out to me in the sports world is that Joel Embiid signed a 5-year extension with the Philadelphia 76ers.
It's a little crazy.
It was like $142 million, something like that, like a whole fuckload of money. I think the most surprising part about it to me is that when we look back, we all remember Greg Oden.
We do.
Greg Oden, Kevin Durant saga, right? He played 51 more games over the first 3 years of his career than Joel Embiid, and he is easily thought of as the biggest bust
of all time
in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And yet no one's like, I'm sure some people are like, don't give him the money. But people are like, well, Joel Embiid's still a good player.
How long can you hold out hope, though? That's the question.
He's good when he plays. So maybe that's the difference between Greg Oden and him. Because Greg Oden was never like, oh, he could be a superstar, whereas in Joel Embiid kind of looks like it. But I just think in the NBA today, when centers are like the least important position, and then you're going to give him that much money just because you have two number 1 overall picks that haven't played in the NBA yet. They're like, yeah, this is our core, and they're going to go with it. Yep. I just think it's all crazy. So what do you got on some current events?
So I seen the thing with regards to Donald Trump saying that NBC should have their license pulled for broadcasting, which obviously is impeding on our First Amendment. I just think it's crazy that the amount of fake news that Donald Trump says there is, yet when Barack Obama was in office, there was plenty of times Fox and other news stations gave fake information or gave things that he didn't want to hear. You didn't see him go on a Twitter tirade saying you're fake news, you should have your license pulled. Yeah. That to me is just crazy.
I think from my perspective, what's crazy is I think we can all agree that at least the Bill of Rights shouldn't be changed, right? We're all like, can't change the amendments, even though they're called amendments, which is a whole other conversation that people don't get. But the same people that are going to be like cheering Trump on for saying this are the same ones that are like, you can't take away my right to bear arms.
Agreed.
Yet we're okay with taking away freedom of speech.
Well, it's because they don't care about the first one, only about the gun control.
Right. So I think that's where my first thoughts were at, or like, if you're going to stand by, you have all of these rights and freedoms. I just think the freedom of speech is the most important one out of all of them.
Agreed.
And yet we have someone who is saying that. Kind of leads on to something else I saw where read today. And now Rush Limbaugh, I'm not like a huge fan, right? But
I would say I'm the exact opposite of his fan.
And he wasn't completely there because he kept saying like, Trump's in the moral right place on this NFL thing. But, and he should say this because it identifies with his ideology of small government, that the president doesn't have a right to tell a business what to do with their employees.
They don't. The president has no right to tell anyone what they have to do with their employees.
So it just starts to look a lot more like a dictatorship whenever he's like, you should do this and you should do that. Like Obama wore a tan suit once and it was like the end of the fucking world.
Yes.
So I think that's crazy. Also, I'm sure you've seen a little bit of this, I think it's Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
I believe it's Harvey. Crazy stories coming out on this thing. The fact that he jacked off to a potted plant in front of a woman.
Nuts.
Right. I think that's crazy. Not to make light of the situation. Obviously, it's horrible that he was like forcing himself on these women and they felt like they had to get in the business and all that. And I was reading an interesting article today about, men kind of allow it to happen in the fact that, like, I read where, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow, when she was dating Brad Pitt, this happened to her. She told Brad Pitt, and he just called Harvey Weinstein and bitched him out, right? And they kind of got into it. But Brad Pitt didn't, like, go to the news and say, hey, he tried to solicit my girlfriend for sex just because he's a position of power, right?
Yeah.
And this article I was reading, I mean, it was kind of defending men, so maybe that's why I was drawn to it, of even men don't say anything because sexual assault and harassment is portrayed as like any man can do it.
Yeah.
So they're all like, well, if this happened, what if I got in a situation? So they don't want to rat anyone out. But I think in all honesty, it's a certain type of person who's going to do that. And not all men would do that. And it is kind of pitched like all men are creeps. And I think when that message is out there, a lot of men are like, well, I'm just going to stay out of it then. Because you're going to accuse me of shit if I even get involved.
I'm going to be in that stigma, so I don't want to get involved. Agreed.
I think once we keep having conversations about it and stuff, eventually it'll get better. I don't know the actual stats, but I'm guessing not many women are like, eat my pussy to get on this movie.
I mean, I would line up.
Well, it depends on the person. If she looked like Harvey Weinstein, you wouldn't.
No, there's no way.
So, I mean, it's all crazy, but I mean, it's not just in movies. I'm sure it happens literally in every business section in America or the world.
I mean, speaking regarding that, Harvey Weinstein, was Ben Affleck had to come out today because he was one of the people saying that was bad. However, he apparently groped a woman on MTV in 2008 or 9. I don't remember her name, but he came out and apologized, even though it's almost a decade later. Saying I should have never done that because he's getting a lot of backlash because he said that's inappropriate. You shouldn't do it yet.
I was reading about that, and I'm like not at all trying to defend him just because for just any reason, but I think who you are a decade ago is different than the person you are now in some sense. Like, I mean, there's men and women who done things 10 years ago. I just don't think you should necessarily have to apologize for everything you've ever done. I don't know.
Well, it's like
slippery slope.
Agreed. That's what I was about to say. It gets into a very slippery slope whenever you go into people's past and saying that they haven't been able to change from it and have to apologize for something that. And again, I don't know if he apologized back then or not. But to me, people getting upset about the situation because he came out in support saying that he should not have done what he did.
Right. I mean,
and that's what I find.
Just like we were saying a second ago, where a man tries to somewhat get involved and do the right thing, or what we would like, hey, I'm saying, yeah, that's shitty, even though this guy put us on the map with Good Will Hunting, I'm still going to come out against him, and then that leads to him getting attacked on some stuff that happened 10 years ago. So, I mean, I get why it happens. People want to point out anyone who's a hypocrite. I mean, that's just how we are in America, especially.
Quickly as possible.
So I could see how it all happens, but it's odd it came from that.
For sure. And to all my baseball people out there, currently the Yanks are ahead 3-0. Last I seen, they were in the middle of the fifth. I'm not a huge Yankees fan. I've never been.
I will say I hate the Yankees.
But
they're the Dallas Cowboys of baseball to me. That's how I feel. Any of these
I understand.
America's teams I hate.
Agreed.
Always.
Now, they do have the championship argument. I think it's 27, or is it now maybe 28 championships?
It's easy when you can just pay people all the most money.
But they do have a player that I have, over this season, really just developed a liking for, and that's Aaron Judge. Dude's like 6'7", 220 pounds.
Right. He's I won't say freaks the right word, but kind of like he's just so abnormal compared to other baseball players.
Agreed. I mean, he looks like a defensive end for some NFL team. But when he plays, he is just so happy to have the opportunity to do it.
Very humble.
Very. And I mean, I seen him get a single, and he was just smiling from ear to ear, which you did not see that in the regular season. He was always professional, never was trying to overdo or be too emotional regarding one thing. But since these playoffs have started, you have really seen almost that kid come out in him, which makes me want to root for someone like that.
Right. I mean, I do like him, and I hate everyone that's ever been a Yankee. So
for sure. And I have to slightly follow the Yankees just because Matt Holliday is on that team.
And you have some weird relation through like 5 marriages.
Yeah, they were somewhat by marriage times 5 related. But Plus, he gave me an awesome T-shirt for Christmas one year that I still have in my closet.
Yeah,
that says
that.
"Every day is a holiday."
All right, so we'll try to, I guess, get in this up because it's a little late from when we're recording this. Our top 5 list this week is going to be. Oh wait, hold on. Before we get into all of that, we missed like this thing we started last week that we should try to keep going. We have an email address, and we love people to email us that happen to listen to the show and want to give us top 5 topics or just other topics and things for us to talk about. It is thepowwowwithmo@gmail.com. It's THEPOWWWITHMO@gmail.com. So please let us know if you're listening and if there's something we need to talk about. All right, so our top 5 list for this week is going to be top 5 favorite rappers. So I used to be a huge rap fan. I will say since I started listening to podcasts a few years ago, I really don't listen to music as much as I used to. I think it's a mixture of that mixed with the fact most rappers today suck. Maybe they always sucked, and maybe because I'm getting older and more mature, I've noticed how like misogynistic and kind of shitty and negative some of it is.
Yeah, that's
it
for
makes
sure.
it a little harder to listen to. But when I was a kid, like when I was 4 years old, I bought a cassette tape at some random 99-cent store. Had some rap song called Tic Tac Toe on it. I've never been able to find the song since, but I just listened to that cassette over and over again. I remember that, and I Wish I Was a Little Bit Taller. I love that song when I was also
Yes.
4 or 5 years old. So I've been a huge rap fan, but and it was also kind of like a rebellion towards my country music loving parents.
Understand?
So we're gonna do top 5 favorite rappers. Again, these are not the best rappers.
These are our
favorites. I would say my criteria for it was, and there was plenty of people I left off that I wanted to put on here, right? Where if I hear they have a new song, a new album, I want to go out and listen to it and find it as soon as possible to hear it. So that's kind of where I was coming from on my list.
I hear you. Mine, I took a very old school, I guess, approach to it of if I was on an island, what 5 people would I want to listen to forever?
Right.
So I'll start off with my 5. Actually, this one was from my mother when I was growing up. She would listen to some of these songs and it's Twista.
Yeah, this is great.
I was just always amazed and almost mesmerized by not only how fast he was, but that I could actually understand what he was saying. Because being fast is one thing, but being able to understand but being fast, in my opinion, is completely different.
Well, and at that time, the only other people, I guess, going that fast were Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yep.
And then Twista, and that was basically it.
Yeah.
So, like, now you have Tech Nine, and he had the whole Worldwide Chopper song that had a bunch of people rapping fast. But at the time of Twista's popularity, he was really the only one doing it like that.
Agree.
And I remember if you, like, once you learned all the words to Over Not Celebrity or any of those songs, and you could go along with it, you felt like a badass.
Exactly. You felt like a badass for sure. So what's your number 5, man?
Number 5, oh man, and this was the toughest spot because I left off a lot of people that I wanted to put.
Understand.
But I went with Big Sean. I would
All right.
say since I heard Big Sean, I just really enjoy him. First, I thought he was white when I first heard him. Not that really matters necessarily, but there's something about his voice is like, white dude, right?
You can relate. Got it.
And then you see him and you're like, oh, he's not at all. But not that it matters, but he had a cool, like, Bullshittin' was like his first song that I remember being kind of big. And he had a cool swagger, but then he kind of evolved to where he's actually saying shit.
Yeah.
Like not all the time, but a lot of his songs, like he has some message actually there where you're like, oh, dude's kind of saying something.
It's a good song.
So I went with Big Sean. He is from Detroit, so I know
He
you
is.
probably like him. I think that I could have went with, Kid Cudi or Kanye or something else kind of in that vein because they're all signed on the same label. But Big Sean, I think, would probably be my favorite out of that group of people and kind of that school of rap, I guess.
For sure.
So yeah, went Big Sean.
All right. So number 4 for me was Ludacris.
Another one I really wanted to include, but couldn't. But I'm glad you did because I feel like he is the most underrated rapper ever.
Absolutely agree. I'll be honest, I really got into Ludacris whenever I started hanging out with you on some of his songs. And just I could listen to his songs all day long, and I'm also I love anything that kind of
dance music.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. And to me, a lot of his songs are, but they're not just some of these dance songs that don't have.
It's like dance music that has good lyrics.
Exactly, and that's, to me, Ludacris is the best at it. And I love his songs.
And I think Back for the First Time, which was his first album, it has like 5 bangers on it that are great. Like What's Your Fantasy was the biggest deal when it came out.
Every week on 106.9 in Tulsa, they had a top 5. And for I don't know how long, I would go to bed, wait for my mom to not be able to listen, and I would turn it up and hear What's Your Fantasy, and that's what I would go to sleep with, singing it every night.
So I remember that. Welcome to Atlanta. I loved Welcome to Atlanta when it came out as well. When Rollout came out, like my dad is my dad. He's like a huge old country music fan, and he would be like, "Roll out," like he would be all for it, right? So I like Ludacris a lot, and a lot of people didn't like. I think Theater of the Mind was his last album, and people kind of hated on it because it wasn't real dancey, but like lyrically, it's one of the best albums
for sure. Plus,
really
I like the way he originated, selling
out of the
trunk of his car. Like that's impressive to make it to where he is today.
And he had a radio personality of Lubba Lubba. That's why he mentions it all the time, because he was just on the radio talking kind of like we are, whatever, and was kind of did his thing. All right, my number 4 is it's the newest person on my list, which is Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
I would say he's the only new rapper that I'm like, yeah, he's done. I mean, I think Drake's good too, but I don't necessarily say him a rap. I mean, he is a rapper, but he sings a lot these days.
He does.
You know what I mean? So... But Kendrick Lamar, he's good and he says stuff. Like, what was his second album? I can't remember what it's called right now. A lot of people loved it. They had like King Kunta and all those songs on it. And even though I didn't love all those songs, when you listen to the whole album is good. And then I think his newest stuff with DNA and Humble and all these new songs are amazing. He's just lyrically good. He's like the only one carrying the torch of like, I write my own stuff, which me personally, like I respect someone who can write their own music a lot.
For sure. I mean,
he's just easily the best in the new school. Like that's just all there is to it. Like there is no one that's as new to the game as him that is as good as he is.
Understand?
All right, what do you got for number 3? I think we actually have the same number 3.
Snoop D-O-double-G.
No, we don't, but it's close.
That's my number 3. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard any rap song that you don't associate Snoop with.
Yeah.
I mean, just in general, I mean, his being able to talk and rap. I know some people don't like it, or maybe.
I think he's a great entertainer. And I think if, say, he had like an ending like a Tupac or Biggie where he got shot before he went from being lyrical to, I'm going to say, Izzle at the end of every other word, like that phase of Snoop. If he would have died before that, he would have went down as a top 5 dead or alive of all time. But I think because we got to see him go into like, I'm just going to make an album that's make money and I don't really care what the lyrics say, is probably why he's not on my top 5. But he is great. Like his original stuff, like back in the day, is so good.
Exactly. And
so maybe it's not fair to like hold it against him. But also love Beautiful and Drop It Like It's. I mean, I love all that shit. So, but I think that's a good choice.
Yeah. So what's your 3, man?
My number 3 is Eminem.
Eminem 3?
Yeah. I mean, again, this is favorite. If this was best, I would put Eminem as the best rapper on my list. Now, because I'm white and I grew up listening to rap music, I never wanted to like Eminem. As weird as that is, because like
a little strange because normally it would be the other way.
But I just didn't want to be like, me talking to my black friends like, hey, Eminem's great. And they're like, fuck, of course you do. So I was always the top that was like, no, Jay-Z's better. Jay-Z's better. And then Renegade came out and Eminem just blew him out of the water on that song. And then it was just it was hard to argue that Jay-Z was better than Eminem lyrically. Like any other thing else you want to argue about, that's fine.
Agree.
And I think after I started writing rap music, I had so much more of appreciation of how good of a writer he is. Like, there's a video on YouTube that's the perfect song or whatever, and I don't even like the song "Lose Yourself" from 8 Mile. Like, it's one of my least favorite Eminem songs.
Yeah.
but they break down that song and how it's like 4 noises in the whole first verse or something, and you're like, fuck, he is so good at this. So I know he kind of fell off for a little while, like, what was it, Relapse or whichever one. His first comeback album didn't do great, and then his second comeback album was like amazing, and everyone loved it.
Yeah.
And then I love Marshall Mathers' LP 1, and I like 2. I will say he's the only rapper that has songs that make it like I feel nervous listening to some songs on Marshall Mathers LP 1. Like when you hear the one where he's like locking Kim in the trunk and all that.
Oh, man.
Like it makes you feel, I don't know if dirty's the right word, but like you feel uncomfortable listening to it. And I think the fact it can invoke that kind of emotion says a lot. The real Slim Shady was just the shit.
For sure. Right? I mean, I like Stan.
Yeah, Stan's good. The video's really good.
Yeah, the video's really good on it. And that is my number 2.
Your number 2?
Number 2 is Eminem. So what is your 2?
My number 2, and this, again, I'm going to have a lot of explanation for this one, is Lil Wayne.
That's my number 1.
Okay, so we're kind of going together.
Yep.
So when I was 11 or 12, I hung out pretty much exclusively with my older cousin, Rusty. Most things I love in life are because of his influence. I don't have siblings, right? So he was the closest thing I had back in the day to an older brother. He listened to nothing but Cash Money record stuff. So he listened to all like Big Timers, Hot Boys, Lil Wayne, Juvenile. That's almost all he listened to. He listened to some Tech Nine back then as well. And then he played Final Fantasy video games. So like the reason I love Final Fantasy and rap music
is from Rusty.
Is just from Rusty. So when I hung out with him and his friends, like so when Rusty turned 16, I was 12. And then he would let me, without any complaints, I just got to ride in his car with him, right? So if he'd go drive around, he'd pick me up. I'd hang out with him and his friends, and we'd just listen to music, and I would just sit there and try not to be annoying. But Lil Wayne was the youngest in Hot Boys, and I was aware of that.
Yep.
And so I just somehow related to that because I hung out with my older cousin and his friends, right? So I don't think Lil Wayne was great back then, but then when the Carter 1 came out, and it was all like, this is the Carter. Yeah. And like, I loved it. Carter 2, I probably know every word to the Carter 2. I don't hate Lollipop, but Lollipop blew him up to a level that everyone loved him, and then it was not as cool to love Lil Wayne.
Agreed.
And like now when I tell people he's one of my favorites, they will judge me in some sort of negative way.
Because agreed. I mean, he became super popular in 2007.
And I hate mumble rap, and so this is weird for me to say. He is the father of mumble rap.
Yeah.
But he did mumble rap, but not really. Right? Because he was actually trying to say something. It was just like he was so fucked up, it kind of mumbled.
It came off as mumble.
Whereas now everyone like imitates that Lil Wayne sound. And I'm sure I will easily admit he's not as good now as he once was, at least from the more current things. Mm-hmm. But if someone's like, Eminem put out a new, Lil Wayne's mixtape, I'm going to download that mixtape.
Yep.
That's just how it's going to be. And I probably have like 700 Lil Wayne songs on my iPod or something. Like he's
for sure
done so much, and I just think enough of it's clever.
I remember the one song when Skating Ring was still cool, was Go DJ. They would play every time.
Yeah.
And what they would do is you could take your skates off and you could go dance in the middle of the skating ring. And that was, because I love dancing, that was just, I loved that song. I would listen to it so I would know how to dance every single time.
Right.
Know when the beat stops. And that's where it hooked me. And then whenever we hooked up in college, almost everything was Lil Wayne.
Yeah, and we listened to a lot of Lil Wayne.
Lot. I mean,
and that was also the time period where he made the mixtape culture. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it seemed to me like he was the one that was like, I'm going to put out 4 mixtapes this year, and it's going to be better than any album. Like, was it 2007 where someone released the top 77 Lil Wayne songs of 2007 because he had dropped 77 songs? It was just fascinating to see someone make that much music.
Agreed. And I mean, I do think that there is a negative stigma with him.
Yeah, easily.
Because, I mean, obviously he went to jail. I remember us going to his website, seeing the countdown of when he was getting out of jail.
Yeah.
Just going to that every single day, seeing any new news about him. And it was just, to me, Lil Wayne, I can listen to him just like I can with a lot of my top 5 at any
Right.
give it
Wayne, I
time of the
think
day.
I feel the exact same way about Eminem in this regard. Lil Wayne seems like a cool fucking person to hang out with.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he has his rap persona where he's like the new age Eazy-E, right, with his dreads and his sunglasses, but he also seems fairly intelligent.
I mean, have you ever seen his thing about racism? His
I
video.
guess
So he has an interview with this black reporter, this lady, and she asked him, and it almost seemed as if she was enticing for him to say, you know, he understands racism. And his first thing is, I don't understand racism. Because I shot myself. And he goes, and there was 4 black police officers that walked over my body looking for drugs and guns. And he goes, the first police officer said, hey, what the fuck are y'all doing? This kid's bleeding out. Was a white guy.
Right.
He took me to the hospital and made sure I was okay. And he goes, so I don't know what racism is.
Yeah, and I think eventually we'll try to get into this on a podcast if we ever get there. I mean, I do think racism exists. I just think it's more of classism. It's like where I'm at.
Go with that,
and we both grew up kind of poor and stuff, so I just think when you're poor, you're treated a certain way.
Oh,
and I think a
for
lot
sure.
of time, and yes, more percentage-wise of African Americans are in that bracket range, right? So I can kind of see where he's coming from. I didn't see the interview. I'd probably have to watch it, but I could get kind of the point there.
Yeah.
All right, so my number one, and this is someone that no one ever mentions on any list, but I just really, really like him, is XV. So XV, he is the only person that I have on my iTunes that if his song comes on, I just don't feel a need to skip it because every song on every mixtape I have of his is good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, the first song I heard by him was Vizzy, Vizzy, Vizzy. And I think we listened to that song every day.
I don't know how many times.
Forever. So,
Busy, X to the V.
right, like that song was really good. And then I think it was also his content. He's from Kansas, so I think it's probably we're in the same area, so I relate to a lot of things he's saying. He's the only rapper I heard mention Chrono Trigger in a song, which is one of my favorite video games on Super Nintendo. And one song he says, I'm agoraphobic gameaholic, which means he doesn't like going out and people or whatever, and he likes video games. And I just so relate to that as someone at the time of me hearing him, I rapped and I loved video games. And then this dude was kind of representing this corner that I was like, I didn't know anyone in rap music cared about RPG video games. The first time I ever heard Big Sean, Mac Miller, Kendrick Lamar, there was a few others I had as well, were all on XV's mixtapes. So I also get kind of pissed whenever they're now blown up that they don't have him on any verses. Him on there?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't even, Wiz Khalifa, I wouldn't even know about these people if I wasn't listening to his mixtapes and then I heard them on a verse. So I said Ludacris is the most underrated. I do agree with that. I think XV, if people that like the sort of things I like listen to him, they would also enjoy him. I don't know if everyone would. Some of his songs are kind of dumb, but he has like a song with Khalib Twali about Star Wars, right, where he's like a young Padawan. And it's like all the references are just so great. You're like, man, this is really cool.
Yeah.
I think most people only know him because on a Verizon commercial, he had the Awesome song was playing in the background of a Verizon commercial, and then he had a song on like a Madden soundtrack.
Yep.
So most of the time when I mention like, oh, that guy that was like on Madden 2012, and I'm like, dude, he has so many good
other things, yeah.
So that's what we have. Some honorable mentions. I mean, like I said, I always like Jay-Z. I like Kanye a lot. His music wise, I mean, he's kind of crazy.
Agreed.
Right, or whatever. And then someone who always gets shit, but I continue to listen to is Asher Roth.
I was going to say Asher Roth is a good honorable mention.
I mean, I Love College is like his weakest song. I mean, it blew up Weezer sample.
Yeah.
And me and you were in a fraternity at the time of that song.
And I think we heard that every single weekend at a party.
Right. And I mean, it was a great college party song. It was about beer pong. We played beer pong.
It was perfect.
It was perfect for the time. But he has put out mixtapes since that that are great. Like, they're funny and they're good.
Yeah.
I just think he's really good and everyone hates on him for no reason. Like, they haven't even listened to his music and they hate on him. So he almost made my top 5, but didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give shout out to Wiz Khalifa. I mean,
I never loved him. I don't know why. He was kind of right up my alley, you would think. But he has, like, I hated the Black and Yellow song.
I was never a fan of Black and Yellow.
I think if it wasn't for that, maybe I like him a little more. But I mean, I don't think he's bad by any means.
No.
But he just was never like, fuck yeah, that new Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah, and I mean, I know one. We'll have to give a shout out to CC, Chance the Rapper.
Yeah, Chance the Rapper. I really like. So I recently, because he came out with I think Acid Rap's his newest one. And he has a song Lil Wayne and 2 Chainz. We Don't Want No Problems. Listen to that and was like, oh, this guy's come a long way since I listened to him a long time ago. But there's a song, I think it's called, oh man, I can't even think of this song. You talk, I'm even thinking of what this is.
Okay, so a few others that I wanted to mention was 50 Cent.
Dude, he was so big when I was in high school.
When I was going from junior high to high school, he was just so popular. It was mind-boggling.
Well, like I was telling you, Rusty, influenced me a lot. Whenever I remember he downloaded Wangsta and then In the Club before 50 Cent was ever like a big deal yet, and we would listen to those two songs. And then whenever he did blow up, I'm like, I know who the fuck this dude is. Right before anyone knew him. Yep. So that made me like him more. And if his second album didn't suck so bad,
the Massacre?
Well, it was mainly because he hated on Ja Rule singing on hooks, and then he comes out and is doing like all this slow jam shit. And I'm like, what the fuck?
And one that I know your big brother in the fraternity was a huge fan of was Nas.
Yeah, he loved him.
Huge fan.
All right, so this Chance the Rapper song, I'm trying to look it up right now. It's like something Cocoa Puffs. I know the hook goes, cigarettes on cigarettes. My mama think I stink. I got burn holes in my hoodie. All my homies think it's dang. Like, I love that song, and I listen to it all the fucking time, so it's pissing me off. I can't think of the name of it right now. But
Cocoa Butter Kisses.
Cocoa Butter Kisses.
That's what it is.
Like, I love that song. And that's an old... That one's actually off Acid Rap, so maybe Coloring Book, same of his new one. He also... I know you don't watch Colbert. Like, I fucking love Colbert. I mean, I always have.
I'll watch it every once in a while, but it's not too often.
Well, Chance the Rapper was on there a couple weeks ago, premiering a new song, and it's one of the best songs ever. That any rapper's ever done, in my opinion. So I think he's still going up. I mean, he's a little too religious for my personal taste, but it's still really good. So I can't hate too hard on it.
Yeah.
All right. So what are we talking about next?
So next thing that we're going to talk about is gun control possible in the US of A.
No.
I mean,
topic over.
I do find it strange, or not really strange, just kind of shocking that the NRA did come out after the Las Vegas shooting of the what is it called? What stock? Is it a bump stock?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I had no idea what that is. My brother had to inform me of how that works.
I watched the video. Yeah.
Shout out Nine-Toed Luke. But I seen that it does very similar, make it to an automatic rifle. You pull the trigger once and it continues to shoot because it uses the recoil to continue shooting.
Right.
I don't see how that wasn't again, I just don't know enough about guns.
From what I understand, the NRA originally said, well, it's fine because your finger's literally hitting the trigger. So it passes all of these check boxes on these rules. Where I'm like, but let's look at common sense.
Common sense, exactly, when it comes to this.
I mean, I think where we live, it's hard to imagine ever. I don't think you're ever going to outlaw guns, and I don't think we necessarily should.
No.
I mean, after all those kids were shot in Connecticut and nothing happened, I don't think anything can happen that's going to make anything, like, just because they were country music fans shot this time, they're going to. So I don't know.
Say something about it.
It's a tough one. So I think what we can look at is I've always said, like, yeah, it's kind of a gun problem, but you know how many women own guns and women don't go around killing people in mass shootings?
Agreed.
So it's obviously a male problem, majority of the time a white male problem.
Yep. I mean,
some about wanting their power back in the world. I'm sure there's something connected there. I I don't know what you can do. I know we watched that thing on Jon Stewart a long time ago where they talked about Australia.
Yep.
In Australia back in the day, their politicians just were like, we're outlawing them, and none of them got reelected. Everyone got pissed.
Mm-hmm.
But now Australia has less than one gun death a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a lot easier to do on a fucking island.
It is. Than it is here.
Right.
Especially when you have Mexico below us.
And Canadians love their guns, and they don't ever shoot people.
No, they're fine.
Is it Toronto that's near Detroit? There's some big city in Canada that's real near Detroit, and it's like they have one gun death every
and then you
6
go,
months,
and then
then
you go
Detroit,
60 miles down south, and you're having 300 a
They live in the same
month.
place, so you can't say it's like environment or cold weather.
For sure.
So it's clearly an American male problem.
Yeah.
'Cause I guess you can't say just white people because, like, in Chicago, a lot of black people and minorities that live in these situations are just shooting each other. And then it's like, if they can go 12 hours without someone dying, they throw a fucking parade about it. And I'm like, I just don't think we should celebrate such a small victory, but I guess you take what you can get.
I mean, my thing is, I don't think we should outlaw guns. That's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, I own one. My wife owns one. My brother owns them. But I think, for instance, like this thing that Trump is removing when it comes to mental backgrounds,
Right.
that they won't matter anymore. To me, that's a major problem.
I mean, it is, but even if you've done one of those checks, people go crazy all the time. Like me personally, maybe we'll talk about it someday. I honestly battle with depression quite a bit. I do not own a gun because I actually fear I would shoot myself.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird to say, and like I don't really want to get into it, but like there are times where I'm like, it's just too hard to kill yourself. But if I had a gun easily, I could see myself in a moment of depression doing something stupid.
And you can't go back from it. Obviously.
And then some people are like, well, if someone wants to kill you, they'll get the knife. I will defend myself against someone with a knife over someone with a gun, right? So it's all crazy. Like I don't think there's a right answer. I understand both sides completely.
I agree with you.
I mean, if you said outlaw them all tomorrow or you said let them have anything they want, I understand both sides. Like, I really do. Now, what I think's dumb, this isn't from like my actual beliefs, just from a logical standpoint, is someone's like, you can't outlaw AR-15s. And I'm like, why not? You outlaw Tommy guns. Like, you can't just own a bazooka.
Agreed.
Right? Like, you cannot go to a store and just buy a bazooka. Why? Because they fucking blow up a whole building. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to be like, okay, these certain guns, we're not going to sell them.
Agreed.
And then people are going to say, well, bad guys are still going to get them. It's like, yeah, but in 60 years from now, probably not. Like, I look at it the way cars with seatbelts, right? Mm-hmm. If a car is a certain age, you do not have to wear your seatbelt because they didn't have them.
They didn't have them. They're not
now,
required
when they
now.
first made the whole, like, cars have seatbelts, they weren't going around arresting people without it. They, like, put in this thing of, and now the number of people that own cars without seatbelts is so low.
Oh, yeah.
Because everything now does. So if you made some sort of provisions in weapons eventually, because people always want new shit, it would help in the long run. So I think a lot of people just kind of hold on to these dumb excuses.
Yep.
Just because.
Agreed. And I also understand the argument of, well, there's not much of a difference between an AR-15 and a 30-30, which is a hunting rifle.
Right.
I understand all the arguments. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm fine with either.
But I think when AR-15 is promoted as this badass thing, because I'm sure you've seen like gun magazines and their ads, like the rhetoric around it is different than the ad for a hunting rifle.
Agreed. And
even
maybe
though it's
maybe
just
that's
as dangerous.
it. And maybe that is an issue, is because again, you can use the same thing you can use an AR-15 to go hunt if you want.
Yeah.
And I think it may just be that people have classified it, or at least put in their mind that those are a different weapon than a hunting rifle. And again, no.
I mean, I also think it's like, well, yeah, this version of a car can drive just like this version of a car, but one's treated
faster,
different.
Exactly.
So, I don't know, it's a delicacy. Like, we have friends that love guns. We have friends that hate guns. I've never really cared. It's one of the political issues that I'm not invested on either side necessarily. I don't have hardcore opinions. I just get annoyed when people say dumb shit.
For sure. I mean,
on either side.
I purchased a gun for one reason, because I am honestly nervous that we have people that can just come run up in your yard. And with how people are these days, and especially some of the people that are around my place,
Right.
I want to make sure that, I mean, I can handle my own, but if I have 3 guys coming in there, that's a problem.
Well, and I think that's another thing. Like, I think me and you both, I mean, we love where we're at presently or whatever, but there is something romanticized about the time period when it's like, how about I just beat your ass?
Exactly.
Right, and we'll settle like men. We're now like...
Take the Friday rule of, we used to go out with these. Go out with these knuckles.
Exactly.
We'd always come home. We may get an ass whooping, but we could always come home.
Right, and I don't know, I like that more than... Well, and, I mean, me and you are both, like, probably medium-sized people in today's world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're, like, both 6 foot tall. But the fact that a little 100-pound 5'2" motherfucker can pull out a gun and kill you, that shouldn't happen.
No,
you should be able to
exactly.
beat their ass. They're talking shit. It's
Agreed.
fucking law of the land sort of shit.
Exactly.
But I don't know. It just seems like it's just all weird.
It
I don't know,
is.
it's hard to explain.
And I mean, like I said, I have family that love guns, and I have no problem with them. I wish we could figure out a happy medium somewhere, and I could just quit listening to all the bitching about it.
So, like, my grandpa is he was a correctional officer when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. He loves guns, right? He's all about them. But even he'll be like, why the fuck you need 30 bullets? He's like, I just need 6 because he carries a 6-shooter with him. I mean, now I think he has like a 30 bullet clip sort of thing, right? But forever he carried a 6-shooter, and he was like, if I can't hit you with these 6, I don't deserve the like, that's just kind of his mentality. And I enjoy his take on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about the whole, like, I'm a badass and I'll just take you out with these 6 bullets in here.
Agreed, man.
All right, so we'll take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to try to talk about some Thunder basketball, and then maybe a little CTE sort of football stuff.
Oof, tough topic.
All right, and we're back from the break. So, next topic we have, it's going to be about the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll preview for next
OKC?
podcast because we're going to do a whole NBA sort of predictions podcast, or at least one of our topics. So, we live in Oklahoma, if we haven't mentioned it 18 times already, on our first 3 episodes. But I think the reason why people are like such big fans in Oklahoma for the Thunder is they are our only professional sports team. When me and you grew up, there was not any sport had a team here, so you kind of got to choose what you wanted.
Yeah, or like
choose
most,
Dallas.
You were Dallas, and I just was not a Dallas fan.
Exactly. So last year was awesome. I mean, it was a mix. It was ups and downs last year, right? So we did easily have. I think we're spoiled as Oklahoma City Thunder fans. We had Kevin Durant, one of the best players. Had Russell Westbrook, one of the best players. James Harden at one time, which everyone now is like, worst trade ever. But honestly, at that time in the NBA, you wanted a big man who could block shots and shoot jump shots. You still want that, and what Ibaka was before they gave him that extension, over a 6th man.
Agreed.
So I don't really hold it as much against Sam Presti as a lot of people do. But that's like always the one bad part of our history, right? Like, how do we let James Harden go? But I also think it was hard to predict what he would become.
Agreed. I mean, you thought maybe he's just going to try to act like he's going to get fouled and get to the foul line every game.
Last year, like we said, Kevin Durant left. Just my quick 2 cents on that. Right, of course, you can give your opinion as well. I would have been cool if he left for anyone else.
Agreed. I mean, him going to Golden State was the biggest cop-out, in my opinion,
right,
of all time.
And it's not, I mean, it is, but it's not even just the whole, like, you were up 3-1 against them, you blew it against them, you're 1 game away from beating them. All that is a thing, but I think if any big player went to a team that set the record in wins, and that player that could, like Kevin Durant, I don't know if he would have ever been considered one of the greatest of all time, but like let's say he stayed with the Thunder and they won last year or something, he could have been on that path. I think he, just as a basketball fan, he changed his legacy just on that day.
He's a ring shopper, in my opinion.
Right. So, like, no matter what happens, yeah, he might go down as the greatest mercenary of all time. And that's fine. But he will never be on the topic of LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, any of these people, because he was like, I mean, it's like when you do a creative player on a video game, you're like, well, I'm just going to put me on the best team.
Exactly.
And so, like, just trying to take all, like, Thunder love out of it, just from a basketball standpoint, that's just kind of how I feel. And I can never be, like, a huge fan because of that.
Agreed. I mean, it almost felt like it was cheating.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. But it's not.
Well, and then he recently, he had that whole fake Twitter account. And then he was like,
I think it's so funny that
couldn't
happened.
win those cats right or whatever. And I'm like, well, you know what? If you took a fucking $8 million pay cut with the Thunder like you did for the Warriors, they could have put more people around you. But you know what? You wanted fucking max contracts. So it's just it's so annoying.
Agreed.
I love Bill Simmons. Listen off his podcast. Bill Simmons goes so fucking soft on Kevin Durant because they're buddies and do podcasts together. It drives me nuts. He's just like, it's okay. Yet Bill Simmons destroys LeBron James when he goes to the Heat. And the Heat weren't even good the year before LeBron went there.
Yep.
So I just think, to me, that's always going to be my problem with that whole move. Now, nothing we knew about it now. I think it's kind of fun that there's just this Omega super team, and now we're going to have like the Rockets and Thunder and Spurs always. People just trying to be like, we're going to take down the big boy, right? It's like Star Wars. It's like they're the Death Star.
Agreed.
So I think it could be fun for the league. It was just fucking annoying.
It was. And I mean, and obviously being an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, it made it just worse.
Right.
I just, when he decided to go to Golden State, again, I think I'm on your same mindset of if it would have been any other team.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it would have been the Cavs, I could have accepted it more than Golden State. And again, I think the biggest issue was the pay cut. You're asking max from the Thunder, yet you are okay with going to another team that you have a really good idea they're going to win a championship.
Right, and I think the only thing I can come to his defense for is I'm sure it is harder to be a well-known black man in Oklahoma than it is in California.
Yeah, but I mean, let's look at Russell Westbrook. I mean, and the one thing that I can say about us Oklahoma City fans is when we love you with everything.
See, you say that, but I remember, when they were both on the team, everyone hated Westbrook.
You're right.
And I remember being one of the few people, and I know people would be like, you're lying, you weren't like this. But I was one of the few people that I always was like, I actually liked Westbrook more.
Yes.
Not that he was better. I just liked his ballsiness and the fact he took all the heat. Like Kevin Durant didn't take any heat ever, except that one thing where the guy put Mr. Unreliable, which turned out to be true because he left. And then whenever that happened, they like apologized and like reprimanded the reporter who wrote it. It's like they were just in this bubble, right? And Westbrook got all the shit. If you take too many shots, you should be passing, blah, blah, blah. And now everyone acts like they always loved him.
Yeah.
And he's great. I mean, his personality is awesome. Like I don't think you could ask for a better person to root for because he is so polarizing, like when he knocked over Jokic last night.
Man.
And for no reason. Like, I love Westbrook. I can't even defend why he did it, right? Like, it was 20 seconds into the game.
Because this is his court, and he said, get the fuck off of it. That's why.
Right. And so we love that shit in Oklahoma.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, so last year, Russell went on the one-man show, triple-double machine. And I'll just defend that real quick because a lot of people hate on, clearly they let him get some rebounds. But I think the reason it's okay, besides the fact I'm a fan, is it makes basketball sense to say if he can get it and take off running and not Adams or Cantor and dish out to him, you're shaving some seconds off and he strives in the fast break.
Yeah.
So I think it actually makes basketball sense for them to do that. So, yeah, maybe they let him have it, but I don't think it was just for the triple-double. I think they let him have it because that's the way they wanted to run the offense. It was the only way they had a chance, is if they got Westbrook just going 100 miles an hour down the court as quickly as possible.
Agreed. And, I mean, let's move on to this year.
So we have big moves in the offseason.
Obviously, Paul George.
I kind of like Sabonis, right? I mean, he looks stiff as fuck. But I like any time, and this is just me playing video games, I like getting a rookie on an NBA 2K. you start those motherfuckers and you just see what they can do, right? I enjoyed the fact he got some playing time. I never liked the Victor Oladipo trade.
No.
I mean, I think it was a good trade, giving up Ibaka for what they got. But when you compared his playing style to Westbrook, there was just so much duplication. And I was like, unless they're both just cutting to the basket all the time, but that's not what they did. It was Westbrook ran the show, and Oladipo just kind of stood there. And then when he got the ball, he wasn't used to having it, so he didn't look good. So I think trading Sabonis and Oladipo, so he basically traded Ibaka for Paul George, just with the 1 year in between.
Yep.
So at the end of the
Amazing trade.
Good trade, right? Now Paul George could leave. Again, I personally don't think if I was a tall black man in Oklahoma, my life would be like super easy. I don't think we're like the most racist place, but we definitely have met some racist people, right, in the state.
Yep.
Oklahoma City, I'm sure, is not as fun as LA would be. Things like that.
I mean, I've seen the memes of, we have a Chili's you can go to tonight.
Right. But I think if Paul George, if they win, if they're winning a lot, Paul George hasn't had that in a while. I think if the Pacers would have been winning, Paul George wouldn't have acted like he wanted out. So I think we do have somewhat of a chance to keep him if they do really well.
I mean, he said it in July that he said, I'd be dumb to leave the Thunder if they were, as a free agent in 2018, if they were championship contender.
Right. Because, I mean, I guess everyone's just buying an Alonzo Ball hype. I don't think he's going to make them a playoff contender immediately alone. So,
no.
And in the same sense, I think if it was like a lot of people are talking about John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George all going to the Lakers, well, then he's just kind of on the same boat as Durant or
Agreed.
James when he went to the Heat. So I don't know if he wants, I don't know how much he cares about that, but he seems like he's just a pure basketball player and is like, well, we're playing good basketball. That's what I'm down with. So we start with the Paul George trade. I think everyone was hyped. I mean, I like Paul George. I don't think he's like, he hasn't done anything right. He's never hit a game-winning shot, even though his Gatorade commercial shows him doing it. And,
yes.
But I think he's a really good defensive player. Thunder definitely need that.
And he's still young. He's only 27 years old.
Right. He came back from breaking his leg, and no one thought he was going to come back as strong as he did. So I think he'll be really good. I really hope he's the number 2 option this year. I know there's a lot of debate over if he'll be number 2 or 3. But I think he's going to be just a really good piece. And then we have the Carmelo deal.
Yes.
Which is an even better deal because as much as I like Cantor as a person and on social media and all that stuff, as a basketball player, he would have strived in like 1999 through 2006. But currently, you can't play at Twin Towers. He can't defend. He just turns over his shoulder amazingly well, but that's just not how the NBA works today. So I'm totally cool with getting rid of Cantor.
And in my opinion, I've never been a huge fan of Doug McDermott.
I mean, I wanted to like him because he is Dougie McBuckets. That's a dope name.
Exactly. But he just, since coming from the Bulls, he didn't pan out.
From what I noticed last year is it's like he's trying to prove to everyone I'm more than a 3-point shooter. And we're like, motherfucker,
you're not.
No, I don't even know if he was like, that's what we needed, a 3-point shooter. So whenever they pass it to him, he's like, no, I'm going to drive it to the hole. You're like, no, take the fucking shot. Like, you were a great college 3-point shooter. Just do that shit. So yeah, I think the trade all around. Now, Carmelo was always my favorite from that draft. Not best, but my favorite. So I just always really like him in the Nuggets. I even liked him in the Knicks when they weren't good.
Yeah,
I like Carmelo. Now, I understand his whole ISO ball and all that's probably not going to work amazingly well in today's NBA.
No.
I know they have him starting currently. I would love to see him come off the bench and just be play ISO ball against the second unit. Because Carmelo will torch a second string.
Tear him up.
So he wants to start. They're going to let him start. I just think it might even be a better plan if you let him come lead the second unit. And we'll see what happens throughout the season.
Agreed. And I mean, because he's now, 33 years old? So, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, especially even the latter part of the season. Let his legs stay underneath him for playoffs. Because, I mean, they'll make the playoffs, especially with the Spurs. Because is Kawhi out the entire season?
No. He's just slow to get back right now.
Okay.
I understand.
I think that's a great idea if you'd have him come off the bench. I do think you have to appease him because, I mean, he did have to waive the no trade clause.
Well, the big thing is he waived the trade kicker. There on his contract, yeah, where if he was traded, his salary bumped up another like 15% or whatever the number was, and he even waived that. Like, okay, we won't do that.
See that?
And I want to say the Thunder have the second highest payroll this season.
That wouldn't be surprising.
I think that. I mean, it's surprising they do because
it's Oklahoma City,
right. So it really does seem like they're trying to go all in a time where very few teams are going all in because of the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope they meet the Warriors in like the Western Conference Finals.
Oh, it would be. I just think. I mean, this is terrible because I think they'll still have the 1 seed.
The Warriors? Oh yeah.
But it would be good if for whatever reason, and I don't think Oklahoma City will be the 8 seed at all. But if they were and played in first round and just beat them out first round, but
I mean,
but that's not gonna happen.
It'll be more fun in the Western Conference.
Oh, for sure, especially in the finals
because of the 2 years ago.
thing,
right?
As long as we don't have a 3-1 loss.
I mean, or they can come back from 3-1.
Oh, that'd be such a sweet revenge.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard of the All-Star Game format changing a little this year, right?
I'm a fan of it.
I think it could be cool. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if it's like LeBron and Steph are the two captains because it's the whoever get the most votes, and then LeBron's like Carmelo, D-Wade, Chris Paul, banana boat team. I mean, there's room for it to be weird. I could also see a world in which Kevin Durant gets the most votes, and then he chooses Russell first to be like olive branch, and then I can see Russell being like, fuck you. And apparently they're friends now, but I just think Russell Westbrook wouldn't turn down the opportunity to make the Oklahoma City fans cheer over his pettiness or whatever. Like you were mentioning earlier, the adopt a cat.
Yes.
I think it's great. I love all of his digs. He just has a cool attitude that you don't see in today's NBA because everyone kind of are just good choir boys, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's always saying the right thing, and it's because LeBron. And I used to hate LeBron. Now I respect him these days
for sure.
I think it's amazing that he's dealt with all the hype. I mean, we knew him when we were in high school and he was in high school.
We all knew about him.
Everyone knew about him. He dealt with a lot of stuff, and he has never done anything wrong publicly.
No.
Even people saying him leaving was wrong. I don't even think that was that crazy just because it wasn't like he was going to the best regular season team that ever played this season before like Kevin Durant did.
He just wanted to go with his bros and
Cleveland wasn't doing anything. Like that's another thing is when LeBron left, they weren't getting people around him. Like the best player on his team was Mo Williams.
I'll say Mo Williams was his best dude.
And I don't know. I really hope the Thunder I hope they kick another gear, right? And they figure it out. I think Westbrook will defer to Paul George and Carmelo, at least the beginning of the season, to kind of fill it out. Mm-hmm. But also Westbrook's the top. If he feels like they're going to win better with him going one-man show,
then he's going to do it.
He's probably going to do it. So we'll see. We'll see how the season goes. I'm not going to have cable this year. Last year I got PlayStation View just to watch NBA games. But then it started taking up so much of my data cap that I just couldn't keep it anymore because I was going over and they were about to make me upgrade to a business package just because how much it's automatically in 1080p and you can't change it. There's no settings or whatever like Netflix. So I've had to let it go for now. Once the season gets here, I may cave in and try it again and just watch NBA games. Kind of a tangent here. What's up with these fucking DirecTV packages or like NBA just offers their own NBA pass that you can get on the PS4. Mm-hmm. It doesn't let you watch your local teams. Like I would pay
where all local channels are blacked out.
Right. Well, for the Thunder one, because I tried this last year at the NBA, I did like a trial. I could watch every other team play
except for the Thunder.
I don't give a fuck about watching the other team. I mean, I do. I love basketball
for sure,
but I want to watch the Thunder. I would pay you $200-$300 or whatever it was for the season if I could guarantee watch all the games.
Agreed. And it makes it worse for people that, especially if they don't have those local channels, right? Because the local channels is Fox Sports Southwest.
That's the only local channel, and that comes on a cable package.
That's not a.
The other two are ESPN and TNT. Mm-hmm. You can't just pick those up on an antenna. Like, you have to have a cable or satellite.
And it's not like you can pick those up as individual channels.
Right. So it's fucking annoying. I would be just to watch their games.
Agreed. I mean, it is very annoying. That's one reason why I would not purchase it.
And they just signed a deal with this Asian market where these Asian markets are going to be able to watch every NBA game, but yet
we can't
sitting here in Oklahoma can't watch a fucking Thunder's game by just paying some money. So
this is America. This is bullshit.
I know. They need to fucking get our freedom back. That's what we need to do. All right, so we didn't go too long there, but I think that's basically it. We're just real hopeful for the Thunder.
Yeah.
We hope it's real fun this year.
I just want to know who the other stash bro is going to be now.
Maybe Carmelo grows a mustache, you know?
Oh, that'd be sweet.
I don't know if he can.
Because I love Adams.
Oh, yeah. I don't love him for that contract, for how he played last year. So I don't think he's made to be second fiddle like they tried to make him last year. So maybe this will be better.
I just think that with what they have now, him being 4 option.
And how the fuck did Robertson not spend the whole season just standing in a corner hitting threes and then standing on the top hitting three? Like, he should have done nothing but do 3-pointers and free throws all offseason. From the few preseason moments I've watched, apparently that didn't happen. If someone's paying me, what do you get, like $20 million a year? Something stupid. Oh, the worst contract. I understand he's a defensive specialist. Tony Allen does not get picked up today, right?
Yep.
Like, you got to be able to shoot in the NBA. And if I'm him and I want my career to last, I do nothing but shoot free throws and threes all summer. That's all I would have done. I don't know what he did. Obviously not that.
Not that. Probably
just
worked on layups.
It blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Like, I just feel like if I'm in that position, and who knows, I would never be in that position. But if I'm like in the pros and I'm like, I have this glaring weakness in my game where motherfuckers don't even guard me. They'll give me 15 foot and say, good luck.
I'm just going to learn to fucking shoot on my own.
Well, and another thing I've heard recently, there's like only 2 teams in the NBA that have shooting coaches.
Really?
It's like the Spurs and some other team are the only people with shooting coaches on their roster. Blows my mind. How would not every NBA team have a shooting coach? Just someone who does nothing but study shooting mechanics and then tells these people that paid way more than them.
I didn't know that.
Like
That's crazy.
So maybe it's a Thunder's fault. They don't have a coach just sitting there going, hey, learn to fucking shoot. But Robertson drives me crazy. He drives me crazy in real life. He drives me crazy on the video game because he's so, like, he just can't shoot. Oh, man. Anyway. All right. So our last topic that I wanted to bring up, because you have 2 sons.
I do.
Something I've kind of thought about is, would me in a hypothetical world, if I had a son, or you that actually has 2 sons, let our sons play football?
To me, that's tough because there is overwhelming evidence that CTE exists because of football.
Well, I think they know it exists because of other things.
But if you play football,
right,
you are going to have this issue. And my problem is, was it 90% or 9 out of 10 people that they had?
I think it was 111 out of 112.
It was a ridiculous amount of ex-NFL players that had CTE. And I know you had mentioned that even just running with a helmet can cause issues.
Now, I'm not an expert, of course, and what I read or watched could be wrong. But from what I understand, it was like just having the helmet on and running, just that little bit of, because it adds extra weight and kind of jiggles your head around, even that could lead to CTE. Not even the big hits.
And my problem is that, and I do appreciate the NFL and the league or whatever. They are teaching kids how to actually tackle, which when we were growing up was not a problem. You'd never bent your head down to tackle someone.
Some kids did.
Some people did.
I remember all kinds of kids just drop their head and were like, I'm hitting you. And then coach would be like, what the fuck
are you doing?
Right.
Face mask hits the chest.
See, I say that, but we didn't have great coaches, but we had a drill in which they lined up like 5, put the 5 little foam dummies on the ground, and you just ran between them and headbutted face mask to face mask another dude. And then you would do it at each one of the run. And I had the second biggest head on my team. Kid Jacob Martinez had the biggest head. So we always had to go against each other. And I felt bad. I probably gave him 2 concussions just off this drill. I would headbutt the fuck out of him. And afterwards, he'd be all like walking around all weird and stuff. But that you just did what you were told to do.
Agreed.
Nothing you could do about it.
I mean, my thing is, I don't know right now. I really have no idea when my kids, then it's going to come sooner rather than later. If they want to play football, my problem is I don't know if I could tell them no to playing football because I played it and I did love it so much.
Right.
The problem is I know what could happen. Granted, they've not done any studies of, if you played through high school only, many people have CTE issues.
If I know they said they was at Boston College, have a test they think they can do while you're alive. I do think I have it, which my grandmother has Parkinson's and apparently like some depression, things like that come with it. But I know for a fact I got 2 concussions in 8th grade. So we played Apache. I got ear-holed by this kicker who was like 7 foot tall, 300-pound kicker. And it was like I hit the ground, was on the ground for a few seconds, and then my vision caught up.
Yeah.
Right, one of those moments. And then later on in the off season, we were just playing pickup football during one day, and I got my legs taken out whenever I jumped up to catch a pass.
And knocked your head.
Right on my head. I woke up, or I stood up, my eyes were watering, and then the next play, I thought they were throwing me the ball, and I went to catch it, and it was thrown like 20 yards in front of me to a different person. And I went to the coach, and like just tears coming down. I wasn't crying, I just couldn't control my eyes. And the coach looked at me. He knew I had a concussion. He put me in the coach's office, wrote me a note, and I just sat in his office the whole day because he didn't want to get in trouble.
And I feel like that happened a lot for a lot of people.
Right. Well, and then in 9th grade, that's when I kind of first started developing depression, and my mom had me go see someone and all this stuff. I kind of, now knowing what I know, I'm like, I was related.
Agreed.
And now that's something I've kind of dealt with forever. And I just, until this recent CTE studies, and I know a lot of people self-diagnose and they're just wrong. So I could be completely wrong.
So many Google doctors out there.
Right. But it is something I wonder, like, fuck, did I do permanent damage to my way of thinking because I wanted to be cool and play football?
And I think that's it as well, is not playing football would have put you as an outcast.
But I did quit. I quit in 10th grade. Quit in the middle of the season. I just was like, I don't want to do it. There were kids pissing in other kids' helmets. I remember one kid showed up with an axe to kill this kid who was bullying him. And, like, shit was crazy on our high school football team. And I just was like, I don't really want a part of that. Like, everyone just... Yeah. I'm from a really small town, but part of the culture was we are going to bully and pick on other people. And I kind of was never like I wanted to make fun of my other friends who were cool. Like, it was more fun to me to make fun of someone who was cool
than someone who's not.
Right. And that was just kind of always the way I was. We're in the fraternity. I always made fun of the cool dudes, right? Like, I wasn't making fun of the virgin dudes or whatever. So something about all that, I was just like, well, I'm just done with sports. And then I done speech and drama just because I was like, I had to do something. So I was kind of an out. Even then people were like, why aren't you playing? You've started offense, defense every year since 5th grade. And I was like, I just don't want to do it. So it was tough. But if I wasn't fat, I would have played other sports. When you're kind of a fat kid, that's your sport.
You're a lineman. That's what you do.
Right. And I remember being overweight and my coaches like forcing me to eat more, wanting me to get on creatine.
Oh, like, creatine.
They don't, I'm not saying all, I'm sure there are some good coaches. In my experience, though, they didn't really care about your health.
Some didn't, for sure.
I have shitty knees because they never taught me how to squat correctly.
For sure. I was lucky enough that I had some great coaches. One of them in high school is Ricky Bryan, who is one of the, if not the best to come out of Coweta, that went to OU, played for the Atlanta Falcons. He now is literally enshrined in Coweta High School. They have a giant etching on a glass about 25 foot tall of him. He was a great coach because he taught you everything. But he would tell you things like whenever you're going to jump on the outside, you knock the dude on the back of the head like a club. And I'm like, man, that really hurts. Like, not fun stuff.
I think it also, maybe this isn't that big of a deal. It brings out the worst in you in a way. Like, it brings out some sort of primal urge. Like, I remember one of my favorite things that ever happened to me is me and this dude, Casey Ford, we hollowed a kid and I knocked his earpieces out.
When you could do that, yeah.
Like, his earpieces fell out of his helmet and then they had to pull him off, like, stop the game. He was injured. carried him off the field, and you're like, fuck yeah.
And it make you feel good.
And
but looking back on it, like, that's terrible. Like, I should not feel like that.
Right. And a lot of people, I don't think, even admit that they had those moments, but we all did.
That's
just
to
how
me,
it was.
that was part of your hype.
Right. Like, I remember, I think it was 6th grade. So we had these kids. Tim Brown was in my class, and I think his brother was Matt Brown. And Matt was, I don't remember that even really his name, to be honest with you. But he was kind of on the slower side, which I know that sounds mean, but that's what we called it back then, right? I had to go against him in tackling drills. Now, Matt Brown was probably 70-pound 5th grader. I was like fat kid 6th grader. I don't know how big I was at the time. And I just destroy this kid right in a tackling drill. Like, destroy him. And then his brother got pissed. And so his brother calls me on a tackling drill. And our 6th grade football coach was like, all right, y'all are up next. Tim Brown's like 80 pounds. Like, and I destroyed him. And I felt like a badass.
Yep.
But it was really mean.
It was. And I mean, I agree with you. I mean, there's plenty of times where you just stroke someone where they're barely getting up. You're like, all right, fuck yeah, I knocked his ass out. And it's like, nope, that probably caused him to have a concussion that he's now going to have to play the rest of the game with, because back then they didn't worry about that shit.
Right.
You just played.
I mean, different world. So back to our original question, because it's kind of just divulging into high school football talk. I think, like you're saying, it'd be hard to say no. I at least have a wife that I think would have no problem saying no.
And mine is the same.
So I think you lean on that.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, hey, I'm sorry, son, but mom said, right?
I mean, I think, obviously, I love baseball, and I hope my kid plays that. But one thing that I think was something that a lot of parents don't think of or don't care about. If my kid's not playing D1 sports, you don't need anymore. After high school, moving on, or really your senior year, if you're not going to make it to D1, or if you think you can make D2 to D1, sure. But if you're like me, I was not that great. I was good, but I wasn't that great.
Well, I think if you could get a scholarship
to a school, it's great.
To get to a school to get an education, and that if that's like, your goal or whatever, I'm going to use this to get somewhere, and maybe there is a less than 1% chance that you're going to become a professional athlete.
But at least you get a schooling paid for, and I can see that.
Right, but I think you're saying there's other ones. So, like we just saw where the U.S. soccer team didn't make it, right?
How are you going to lose, though, first off? Sorry to change this subject, but how in the hell are you going to lose to Trinidad and Tobago? Either way, they have like 1 million people in their entire country.
It's because they were talking shit. And then they were like, fuck you, talking shit.
Man.
Knock you out on our own field.
And I think that announcer for ESPN just went off about it, saying how the millions of dollars that we have poured into MLS and youth soccer, this should never happen. He hopes that everyone wakes up with nightmares every day about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, to me, it's obvious why we're not great at soccer. It's because soccer is just not thought of as being cool. And I don't know what you can do to change that, but for instance, there are people who choose to go play in the NFL over baseball, even though baseball is guaranteed money. Like, I'm talking about guys that could do both, like Jameis Winston or a few others, right?
John Lynch.
Right, like, it's guaranteed money. Mm-hmm. The risk of injury is way lower. You have a longer career. You have your health.
Majority as long as you're not a steroid, dude.
Right. And yet people are like, well, football's cooler.
Exactly.
And so they do that. Now, maybe, if we have sons or whatever you do, we can explain them like other sports are a better option. So if you're going to commit yourself to a craft, do that. So I think with soccer, what's going to have to happen is, who's the best running back right now? Let's go with Kareem Hunt because he's new.
I was going to have to say Kareem Hunt's the newest, but I was going to say Leonard Fournette.
But, how can I forget?
Because he has a touchdown every
So let's say Leonard Fournette with his huge self. If you're telling me Leonard Fournette had all that athletic ability, but was like, I'm going to play soccer, and like I understand there's like little things here and there, but he could dominate soccer if he would have committed at an earlier age, right, to really learning it. Or like LeBron James is like, I'm going to play soccer, or like
he's goalie for me.
Anthony Davis is a goalie.
Yeah,
Kevin Durant is a goalie. Like we have the athletes in America to where we could be great. And the reason these other countries are is because soccer is the biggest thing.
Exactly.
So their best athletes go to that.
Agreed.
So maybe with this whole CTE things in the future, maybe some people do choose soccer or baseball. Like, I think soccer and baseball will get the biggest bumps from what is coming out right now. It'll take 30 years until it happens. But I think in 30 years from now, baseball players are going to be better and soccer players will be better because kids are going
the athletes are going there.
Go away from football.
There's Oklahoma schools now that are shutting down their football programs because they don't have enough participants. Well, for that to ever happen.
My school went to 8, man. So it was always 11, man. And we were Class A. We were real small. I can't even watch the games. I don't know the rules.
It's completely different, yeah.
Now, in hindsight, I wish we could have been because I was a good catching, fast, fat kid.
It would have been fun,
it would have been really fun. But it's weird.
It is.
It's a different game.
Just thinking about, especially Oklahoma, because Oklahoma and Texas, at least, it's a football state. Every little kid, I think every major local shop on Friday nights are closed.
Well, and I think most of it will happen, kind of we talked about basketball a bit earlier, I think Oklahoma athletes will go more towards basketball in the future.
Because we have a Thunder.
Because we have the Thunder.
And people always want to play for their home state. But I agree. I think my final takeaway thing would have to be, I don't think I want them to play, but if they wanted to play bad enough, I would allow them to do it.
Well, and parents, I think, even if they don't realize it, they're trying to live vicariously through their kids. And so, like, say Little Giants, right? If you have a Spike.
Oh, man, if you had a Spike.
And your son was Spike, and you're like, no, he's going to destroy these motherfuckers. I think those sort of parents want their kids to play.
Exactly.
And even if you knew in the back of your head, like, this is bad for them, there are going to be certain parents that are still going to be like, yeah, but he's going to be good.
He's going to be good, and I'm going to.
And I think in low-income, poverty-stricken areas, if that's their ticket out and that's all they think they have,
that's what they're going
to do it.
Agreed.
But football is kind of like golf and some of these other sports. Like, it costs money. Like, the schools have to have pads. You have to have a special field with goalposts. Cleats are expensive. I remember as a kid.
Just maintenance on the field alone is expensive.
Whereas I know basketball is similar, but like our church had a basketball hoop, right? And
and you can play baseball in literally a field.
Right. Soccer is the easiest thing to play. That's why it's so popular.
Sure.
That trash can and that street line.
There we go. We got it.
Right. So we'll see what happens. I don't think football will ever die out. I know a lot of people, and I used to be one of them, were like, it's going to be flag football someday. I would pay to watch some good-ass flag football.
Yeah.
Like, if NFL players played flag football, you'd have certain guys who wouldn't be in the league anymore, like the big hitters, but it'd be like a speedy, it'd be a different sport.
Oh, yeah, completely different.
But it would still be entertaining because we like all of that shit. If there's a score and we're keeping score.
If there's some sort of competitiveness.
You can bet on it.
If they can gamble, we are going to watch it.
Right. So, I think it'll be a little different. My big takeaway is just that I think, like I said, baseball and soccer are going to be better. But if I had to choose, I probably wouldn't want any hypothetical son I had to play.
All right. Yeah. That's, like I said, that's my way. As I would say, I would probably try to convince him otherwise. But if either one of my boys want to do it, I will probably be behind them. But the first time that they have a major hit and they can't send up, I'll be that weirdly overprotective parent.
I'm sure you have this too. Like, I had more friends injured playing football than any other sport. Torn ACLs.
ACLs were the worst, or broken bones, broken legs for sure. Just simple fractures that people would have.
Right.
I was injured, and I was not playing baseball. I was injured in track. That's just, to me, baseball is going to be the way to go.
All right, well, I think we're at the end here. Like I said, we're going to try to put all 3 of these out this week. So if you're listening to this, check out the other 2. Send us an email if you would like a topic on the show or have any thoughts.
That's
or
the
comments.
powwow with mo@gmail.com.
And Mo does not have an E. And then I think next week, what's our top 5 going to be next week? Do you remember? Is it movies?
I think it is movies next week.
Top 5, got to work on that. All right, well, please listen. Continue to listen. Subscribe to anything we might have. And we're out.
Peace.